Could be now. All right. Hello, Gut Health Group, and hello, Instagram. Today, I was going to talk about FODMAPs, IBS, hypnotherapy, and everything in between. I've had so many clients this week with IBS and gut issues, or they call it functional gut issues, and there is so much confusion out there. So I also often get people coming in and seeing me who have been on a low FODMAP diet for years, and I mean, like, I think I've had someone come in once and she'd been following a low FODMAP diet for 6 years. I know there's quite a few people in the group that have IBS, either because you've told me on the way in or because you've actually shown you've been a client of mine with IBS. So what happens when we have IBS? It means we have what's called irritable bowel syndrome. And it means that everything else has been ruled out. So celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, any sort of colitis, bowel cancers, diverticular disease, C. diff, all this other stuff has been ruled out. It doesn't mean that you can't have IBS if you also have one of those things. And it is really common to see both of them at the same time. So there's a really high incidence of inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis and also Crohn's disease. There's a high incidence of IBS among those people. So often, and I had it last week, I had a person come in and a specialist had told her to just follow a low FODMAP diet. And this particular client had said, "Oh, can I see a dietitian?" And they said, "No, you don't need to see a dietitian. You just need to follow a low FODMAP diet and you'll be fine," which is true. But after the evidence shows that after 2 weeks, your gut health is actually deteriorated because your body isn't able to tolerate the same level of those fermented carbohydrates that you were previously. So when you take certain foods out of your diet, things that are usually fermented in your gut, then your ability to tolerate those foods drops. So where you might have had a threshold level here, if you take those foods out of your diet, your threshold level drops to much lower. And then if you even have a tiny bit of those foods, you get a symptom straight away. So the FODMAP diet involves removing fermentable carbohydrates, and those are things like your wheat-based foods, oat, barley. It's also really, really common ones are onion, garlic, pears, apples, watermelon, sugar snap peas, cauliflower, mushrooms, all those sorts of foods. So the idea is that you remove the foods that can cause a symptom for up to 6 weeks. And then at that 6, never longer than that, because if you are doing it for longer, then there is really strong evidence to show that your gut health is being compromised. And then at 6 weeks, you start to reintroduce those foods, one food group at a time. So for people that I'm working with, often this takes 8 to 12 weeks. And then as you reintroduce those foods, you start to bring the other foods that you've passed back in at the same time. So that at the same time as you're challenging those foods to see whether you get a symptom, you're actually bringing your threshold level back up. So this can be really stressful. And I always talk about the 4 pillars of gut health. So you've got fiber, fluid, activity, and stress. So inadequate fiber in your diet can upset your gut anyway. Not having enough fluid can upset your gut. Being not very active doesn't help to promote gut health. And then stress due to that vagus nerve and that brain-gut link that I've spoken about in another video. Stress can play up with your gut. So when I'm working with somebody who has come to me for IBS and they want to go on a low FODMAP diet, the first thing I do is get a baseline of fiber, fluid, activity, and stress, and make sure you're getting all those 4 things right first. Then once that's happening, if your symptoms are still around, then we get you tracking what your symptoms are, how often they happen, and what your stress levels are like during that time. While we're taking out those foods from the diet, because I've seen it before as well when people go into exams or they've had a very stressful time at work. No matter what food they're having, their guts are still playing up. So this is where hypno comes into it. Because you don't actually, there's, again, really strong evidence to support the use of hypnotherapy with helping people's symptom level of IBS, and excellent evidence on helping it for people when people are reintroducing those challenge foods, because often it can be somebody's nervous about bringing those foods back into their diet, but it could also just be that they are not, if they're going through a stressful time, then the food that they're going to reintroduce is going to be compromised at that time because they're reintroducing something during a stressful period where they would have had that upset gut anyway. So when I work with people on reducing the symptoms of IBS or working with their IBS with hypnotherapy, there is dietary things that we do at the same time, but it's much less strict and it's much, much less invasive than the low FODMAP diet and less restrictive. I would strongly recommend anybody who's doing a low FODMAP diet at the moment to make sure that you are doing it alongside a person who is trained with that particular elimination diet, because if they are not trained or if you're doing it on your own, it's very easy to just stay on that same diet because your symptom level drops. But like I said, we do know that your microbiota can be affected if you stay on that diet long term because the variety isn't there. And the thing about the fermentable carbohydrates is they are actually the things that feed the good bacteria in your gut to keep them alive. That's why you're getting the issue, because there's an imbalance of that bacteria in your gut and that bacteria isn't working properly. So it's producing extra gases and things to give you that bloating or the alternating constipation, diarrhea, and that pain as well. So I hope that's informative. If there's any questions, let me know. I can see it's a bit hard to tell on Facebook what's going on, but I can see that there are 6 people watching. So if anybody has any questions, hopefully it'll come up. But if you've got any questions following this video, just send me a message through Facebook, or if you've got my phone number, give me a call, send me a message, and we can go through and work out the best course of action to help you treat your gut and your IBS. Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy Friday. Bye.